Around the year 1894, a group of pioneers from the community of Cannington conducted horticultural shows at the local primary school. Cannington was then recognised as the focal point for the surrounding rural settlement and was the chosen site for an agricultural hall to be built at the corner of the Albany Road and Station Street. In its endeavour to encourage the formation of agricultural societies within rural communities, the state government granted funds for the hall, which was to be built on 1/2 acre, made available by the Canning Road Board. The hall was opened for use in 1896 and became the home of social activity and meetings for persons interested in local agriculture. A body to be known as the Canning Agricultural and Horticultural Society was formed to be affiliated with the Royal Agricultural Society of Western Australia and incorporated in the year 1909. Celebrating 120 years, the Society is still going strong with its modern facilities and vibrant identity. Today, we meet some of the members and management of the Canning Agricultural, Horticultural and Recreational Society, reminiscing the past, looking at the present and realising their vision for the future.
Well, my name is Dawkins and I have been a member of the Management Committee of the Canning Agricultural Society since about 1973, in which time the greyhounds were being introduced. And I've remained on the committee until only 2012, for 38 years. And within that time, I've seen a transformation of the showgrounds into what we have today.
I'm Maxine Wylie. I'm a mum of 3 children, a wife obviously, and a person who is very passionate about community.
Everyone refers to me as Len, but my full name is Leonard Robinson. My position here is that of a committee member with other aspects being covered.
My name is Wayne Dawkins. I'm the president of the Canning Agricultural and Horticultural Society as of 2015. I've been a member of the management committee for several years, and I've been involved with the society since I was a kid.
My name is Kevin Morris, and I'm with the society as a committee member. I'm also a life member of the showgrounds and the committee.
I'm Geoff Moor and I'm a committee member and have been on the committee for about 38, 39 years or thereabouts. And my position with the show is, well, generally I look after the ground layout for the show, but I'm also involved with the building and development of the site subcommittee.
My name is Jenny Outram, and I'm the show secretary.
Hi, I'm Colin Dawkins. I've been a member of the Management Committee for the Canning Agricultural Society for about the last 20 years.
I am Diane Begg. I'm the Executive Officer at CAHRS.
My name is Schulz. I'm the Marketing and Events Manager here at the Cannington Exhibition Centre and Showgrounds, and I've been employed by the Canning Agricultural, Horticultural and Recreational Society now, heading into my 4th year, and I've seen a lot of change in that time.
My name is Ray Porter. I'm on the Committee of Management at CAHRS, and I've just served the last 5 years as President and just been elected a few weeks ago as Vice President.
My position now is I'm on the committee, part of the Board of Management, and at the show, specifically for the show, I am last year was the inaugural committee person to be coordinator of volunteers.
Well, at the ripe old age of 26 years of age, I was the youngest local government executive of Canning, I became the secretary of the Canning Road Board. In those days, Canning district was purely sub-rural and what have you, very small population, major problems, etc. I became interested in the society because the Canning show in those days was a vital part of the year's recreation. So everyone had to be involved with the Canning show. At that time, we only had a block of land and it didn't belong to the society, it belonged to the road board. The men at that time, one of whom was George Wilson, who was the Wilson and Johns horticulturalists, nursery people, and they were the major nurseries in the state at that time. He became the president, and he was a very respected person. And they set out and purchased about another 2 acres of land adjoining that site, other than the frontage along the Albany Highway. And on that, they had developed their showgrounds. They then affiliated with the WA Trotting Association and established a trotting track. And on the land that they'd purchased, they established this trotting track, and part of the shows then in those days were trotting races.
My first association would have been back when the Canning Apex Club used to reside locally. Unfortunately, they disappeared as a club because Apex was dying away, but I helped a good friend called Kevin Morris, who was an Apex member in the early days, and before I became a committee member, to do some of the work on the showgrounds.
I was involved with CAHRS and the Canning Show from when I was a kid. My father was a committee member. He was involved very, I think originally through his involvement with the city of Canning or the town of Canning. And then as a member of the committee, they would come along before the show, and it's not like today. They'd have to prepare the grounds. There was the one old hall and the old broken down hall on the corner, and the week before the show, all the members and they would come out with their lawnmowers from home, and they'd all be standing in a line and mow down the grass that hadn't been mowed since the last show. They'd be setting up the hall. So generally that weekend there was the men and the women, the fathers and the mothers and all their kids were here as well, helping out, and that was how I first got involved, and then later on I joined the committee.
Probably around about 1980 or a bit before, I was a member of Canning Apex, and the society were having trouble with volunteers and in particular running the gates and things like that, so we offered to do the gates for a small fee and to keep the show going, and I became associated with that then, and they also asked if one of the Apex members could be a member of the committee to sort of boost it along. When we were down, at the time we were probably well under 100 members of CAHRS. But I did come to the Canning show years and years and years ago as a little boy.
Way back in 1976 I was attached to Canning Council by the state government as a recreation advisor. The then town clerk, Noel Dawkins, who is a life member of the society and a past president, found out that I'd been involved with the Geraldton Sunshine Festival before I came to Canning, and said, I'd like you to go down and give a hand with the Canning show. And there you are, 1976 was my first Canning show, and I've been involved ever since.
Oh, a long time ago when I was working at the Shire of Canning, then it was a Shire, the Shire clerk, Noel Dawkins, asked me to do all the minutes and everything for the society. So I was typing them up at the show. And then after Ernie Little, the previous secretary before me, retired, they asked me to take on the position. So I did that. And it would have been somewhere around the year 74 when the Greyhounds first started. And in 1980, they made me the actual show secretary and went from there.
I first became associated with CAHRS through the Canning Apex Club. We used to run the gates for the show, and one time I got put in charge of running all the coordination with the Ex Society, and came along to the meetings, and my uncle, who was president at the time, talked me into joining the committee as well, so as to be a liaison between the Apex Club and the committee. So from then on, so that was 20 years ago, and still on the committee, even though I'm no longer in Apex.
My earliest recollection of the Canning show was when I first immigrated to WA, and we were living with some people in Armadale, and after being in Perth a couple of days, being down there a couple of days, we said we're going to Perth. And I come from a reasonable country town, but not a big place. And we were driving up Albany Highway heading towards Perth, and we saw the bridge that goes across Albany Highway, just the pedestrian footbridge that goes across there near the showgrounds. And I said to my husband, I said, "Oh, we're here, this is it, this is Perth." And he said, "I don't think this is it." I said, "It must be, they've got a pedestrian bridge over the Albany Highway at Cannington." So, and it was at that point I first found the showgrounds, so that was going back to the early 1990s.
I used to work in theatre and production and entertainment and performance, and at the time I was doing a lot of freelance work before I came across an advertisement for events officer at the exhibition centre.
I came onto the committee in about 1973. Now that was at the time that the society was negotiating with the Greyhound Association. They wished to establish a greyhound track on these premises. In the first instance it wasn't approved of, but later on they came back with proposals that if it was established they would provide the facilities, etc.
Been associated with CAHRS for a long time. When they were actually building the greyhound track here, a mate of mine from school, his father was the first groundsman appointed to run for the greyhounds, and we used to come here when they were building the track with him, and we got to know the security people. I went on from then to work for the security guard, and currently in doing that we actually did work for the society as well, and that's how I got the interaction with CAHRS through the greyhounds initially.
There hadn't been greyhounds in WA before that. It was started by people through the Agricultural Society. I think people thought it was the government or something, but it wasn't.
I was involved with CAHRS in my roles at Greyhounds WA when I worked for about 15 years there. And then with the Canning show in the early 90s, I did actually manage to win myself a prize, a first prize, in hobby ceramics. A class that's still surviving today, but I've never entered it again.
But probably the most memorable experience for me was being awarded life membership of the society. I became a member of the society in my own right, and then I was recognised with life membership, and that was pretty important.
In '95 I was made a life member of the society, and I've been on the committee, I've been in the office, so I've enjoyed just about every part that you can in the society and loved it all.
A really outstanding moment for me in my short time here, is to have seen the Committee of Management realise the change in approach that they have needed to take in terms of how they approach and how they entice the community and the members of the public with both the Canning show and the events here at the Exhibition Centre.
One of the most outstanding moments for me in the society is when the main roads took over the part of Albany Highway, and we had to demolish the old hall. That old hall had been there for nearly 100 years.
The Main Roads Department were wanting to expand the highway, and they wanted to cut through the main hall. And they offered us a pittance for saying, oh, well, the building's not worth anything, etc. And at that particular time, we had plans for another hall at the rear of the exhibition hall, and that was going to be used for various activities. So we negotiated with the Main Roads Department and said, well, look, that's going to cost $200,000. That is the figure we'll want for compensation. And blow me down, they accepted it.
The agricultural hall suffered badly from cracking, and the necessity for ongoing repairs was a constant drain on the society's resources. Not all problems were related to subsidence and cracking, however, for the hall was also affected by white ants, rusting, breakages, and general wear and tear, with the dance floor having to be replaced on one occasion.
Going to a committee meeting and having your chair fall through the floor because the white ants were eating the floor out.
The most unusual type of damage occurred, however, on a show day in the 1960s, when a driver lost control of his car and rammed the front wall of the building, causing extensive cracking. Overall, the amount of money recorded throughout the minutes as expended on maintenance to the agricultural hall is daunting.
The whole concept of the society changed, I think, at that time into being far more vibrant rather than the old stay with the old hall, 100 years of history. All of a sudden we had new administration, we started taking on staff. Everything, I think, changed at that point.
We had sufficient funds and we could see our way clear with revenues, etc., coming in from the greyhounds, where that was set for 30 years, so no worries.
There's a lot of people out there that are so used to regulation and policy and continuing on, and although this place has all of those things in mind, at the same time they're not afraid to take risks. They want this place to move forward, they want it to become more...
I think getting the first sponsorship for one of our community groups was probably one of those real moments, of excitement where you've made the effort, you've started from zero, put together the blueprint, made the application, presented the case, and then you actually open an envelope one day and it's got a bit of gold on the top, and you think, oh, this has got to be positive, and you've actually got the first sponsorship. I think that was a real moment where you look back and think, yes, we're going to make a difference, this is going to work.
I think one of the biggest outstanding moments was the nomination to be a life member, and not that you get any monetary rewards or anything, but just recognition of the time, the effort.
I think there's a lot of outstanding moments, but trying to pick one overall is very hard. We've succeeded in a lot of things we've had. Financially, we've leased out land and matched our business plan that we'd put in place. So those sorts of things are very good, and setting up society for future is a great benefit and a great thing to achieve, I believe.
Because I'm a school teacher, I encourage my students to enter, and having them come to visit me during the show time, or to see that whether they've won a prize or not, and then the following year they re-enter because then I'm not their teacher anymore, but because they want to.
We had an old shed here, which the walls had been removed, and it was just the roof and pillars, and we used to run the bar inside of that, and that was so much fun. There's a whole crowd of people, especially when it rained. Everyone would crowd in underneath the roof and be standing around the bar and chatting, and no one was really working because of the fact that no one was coming in because it was pouring with rain, and that's probably one of the best moments in the running of the show.
They call me the bandit sometimes. I'm the money runner between the gates, because you've got to keep the change going out there because of modern day and era. You only get $50 notes out of teller machines. So it requires a lot of change to be kept up to the turnstiles. Fun in itself, but also demanding and getting it right and keeping it flowing.
When we were kids and the Canning show was on, the old man would get us, myself, my brothers, my sisters, and we would actually come down and do the parking down on the old track. So out the back of the greyhounds and that, we'd have our white coats and our torches and direct people in on the Friday night for parking, and then out onto the trotting track, which was really just a track, and in the middle it was just mud and dirt, and we would direct cars out there, and it would be like, really, the old man used to say, it's a real agricultural show now.
The others on the showground, that the red shirts as they call us, we run around, and I get into trouble because half the time I'm in a green shirt, which is Lions Club, and then into a red one. And then for fun, one of the ladies decided I can solve that problem. I got presented with a shirt that's half green and half red. So I'm yet to wear it and cause a stir.
I think some of the fun was back on the old showgrounds, where we very much were a team of volunteers. This was back in the days before we had permanent staff, and we weren't in that position. And we put on the show in some very old buildings, and crawling around the roof of what was called the Horticultural Pavilion, nailing up shade cloth so that the plants wouldn't get scorched by the November sun, and having a dear old lady who was the agent for booking out the hall and lived nearby, coming over with fresh scones that she'd made for morning tea. For all you young lads working down getting the show ready. Old Kath was absolutely wonderful, and her scones were even better.
When my kids were young, we would come to the Canning show on a Friday night for fireworks. And I remember my son being about 5, 6 years old, and you know, it was quite late, staying up till 9 o'clock for the fireworks. And we did that, and we picked up a show bag, and we're walking back to the car at the end of the night. And 5 years old, and he looked at me and he said, "Mum, this is the best night of my life." And I guess that always sort of stuck with me. You know, you think, well, yeah, that's why we do it. That, you know, for somebody, that night is the best night of their life.
What gets me is the families coming here and seeing the smiles on the kids' faces. That results in the ultimate, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you see the kids go home happy, the families are all happy, that's what makes it.
There's a lot of moments like this that are so fulfilling when people praise you or extend their gratitude, whether it's a community group, a headline act, a member of one of the community groups that we run here. There is so much gratitude in this place. People always strive to give you their thanks.
The person I most look up to at CAHRS, it's pretty easy really, because I think it's my father. I don't, and that's not because he's my father, it's just because he was so involved and put so much in for so many years, and has always been focused on the community his whole life.
Oh, I think without a doubt it'd have to be Noel Dawkins. He's a very, very astute man, and despite his age, he's lost none of that intellect, and he knows government policy, local politics, local government, and he's been a great asset for the society over many, many years.
Oh, in terms of people who I've worked with, Noel Dawkins, who was president for a while, it was the ex-town clerk of the City of Canning, and Ernie Clark, who was the president when I first joined the society. Ernie had been president for donkey's years. His photo up in the boardroom will tell you exactly how many years he was president. Those two men were leaders. They knew how to lead from the front, and they weren't caught up in egos. Not that I think anybody in society is, but they were very, very genuine people. And they weren't afraid to roll their sleeves up and get stuck into it.
Probably from the time I've been involved, Ray Porter has been president the last 5 years, and he's got a vision. He's very determined about what he's doing.
Ray Porter on the committee is an extremely focused and business-minded guy who has had a lot to do with tying over the leases and the development on the grounds here with the greyhounds racing industry and moving them onto the back of the horse trotting track, and Wayne Dawkins, whose family has been so heavily induced with the society for many years now, is an incredible guy who really adds a festive and kind of muso/entertainment aspect to the events and the say that the committee have here at the centre.
Probably be Ray Humphrey. He's been on the committee for 50, 60 years. He's seen the society change from being a local show and very community minded to where the greyhounds took over. He was involved with getting the greyhounds onto the site. He's been involved right through from the road widening right through to now when we're looking at getting Bunnings and moving the greyhounds down to the back. He has been there the whole time, he's been involved the whole time, and I think if I could do as good a job as him, I'd be doing very well.
I have a lot of respect for anybody that really works for the community and doesn't expect anything in return. And I think that's what CAHRS does for us, you know, the Agricultural Society, it gives people the opportunity to do something for the people around them.
I think the past committees over the years have set the society up, and the society's still in a position, in a good position where it is through hard work, through people like Noel Dawkins, Ray Humphries, until recently. Noel was on the committee, Ray Humphries is still on the committee, so these people have been involved for many, many years, and I think they're great mentors.
Every committee person and the amount of time that they give, it's not just a once a month committee meeting, you know, we'll have 2 or 3 around showtime, there's busy bees, and I guess the friendships, because we've got something in common. The friendships have built. We might not see each other out of committee time, but the friendships are there, and you can rely on each other.
Well, there's quite a few people actually. As I mentioned, Noel Dawkins, he's been the president, he's been on the committee for many, many years before me. Old Ernie Clark and his son Ken Clark, they were here for many years as president. And then of course we've become, Ray Porter was our president, and with Diane and Ryan in the office. I mean, all of those, I look up to all of them. They've been a big help for me, and Ray Humphrey. No, they've all been wonderful to me and a very big help.
Without the members, there would be no society. Without the society, there would be no showgrounds, and it really is the members that keep the place running. They volunteer their time for the show. They get involved with the groups, the workshops, the activities, and by them standing by what we do and who we are is what invites more people along, and by inviting more people along is what is going to make this place grow. And the idea that the society has in becoming, you know, this large central centre of Cannington can only be achieved through its membership.
In giving back to the community, the Society provide a range of workshops, shows and functions that keep its members actively involved all year round. Workshops on offer include gardening, knitting and crafts, performing arts including theatre and choir, members are also welcome to take part in an annual day out.
The idea of a men's shed on the Canning Ag Society site was always there, and I personally brought it to the board around 2 years ago and said, well, what about it, guys? And they sort of handball. It's all yours, Len.
The Men's Shed is a new addition available to Society members, providing a place for men to come together, talk about any issues, dabble in a little wood or metal work, or just have a good old chinwag and a cuppa.
Establishing the Station Street Men's Shed a couple of years ago was a huge change, and that was something that will really reap the benefits of the next few years. The men started up there with one room and a couple of guys with a big ambition, and the fact that they've achieved what they have today is something that I think they need to pat themselves back on, but also the society for being able to facilitate that deserves a pat in the back as well.
Over the years, the Society's facilities have changed with the demolition of the old and construction of new buildings and spaces.
Or the design of some of the halls, having arguments with architects into the layout and trying to get across to them what will work and what won't work. Had some wins and had some losses. A few little things that in hindsight we look back on and say, we should have done it that way.
I just went with the change and with the progress and moved from one building to another.
My background is in architectural drafting, and so when they were first doing the concept plans with Frank Bradley, I hope in some way I had a small influence on how it was done and making minor changes, and sort of as we went over and discussed how we were going to the new building was going to operate.
One point that I did point out that the building was a bit crunched in. I said, look, we want more room in the boardroom. We want bigger office space downstairs, so we just stretched the building.
Moving forward into 2016, we'll see the biggest changes at the Canning Showgrounds, with major redevelopments underway. Greyhounds WA have rebuilt a new racetrack to the rear of the block, allowing more space for the Society Showgrounds. The Society has also secured a long-term lease from Wesfarmers, who plan to build a new Bunnings store in the northwestern corner of the property.
The changes that we have undertaken are a lot about modernising the show. It's been going over 100 years. There's a lot of things that we needed to address to put it in a position where it's ready to start looking at the next 100 years.
I'm very excited about the redevelopment because it gives the Society a future, a definite future. We know what we've got and what we can do. It's putting something in place for the people in the community for the next 60 years.
I am quite excited about the redevelopment in the showgrounds, although it probably won't change the actual show too much, apart from having some modern facilities, or more modern facilities, and perhaps different ways of displaying things. But I think it's always good to have a change. A change is as good as a holiday, and if you have a change, if your grounds are different, if your setting up is different, then it just brings out a newer feeling.
The changes since I've been on the committee is getting involved with the leases, the ongoing leases, the divide up of the property and how we're going to restructure the property to provide income. I remember getting onto the joint management committee between CAHRS and the Greyhounds, and the first joint management committee meeting I went to, the Greyhounds actually got up and walked out, so that was an interesting night. But you know, there's been a lot of hard work in developing that relationship and getting to the point where we have a lease now with the Greyhounds for the next 60 years.
I'm excited about the redevelopment because it gives us a permanent income into the future and enables us to employ staff, make changes and have the funding to sort of keep these premises for the community, for the grandchildren and for the future.
It's the next step. You know, I came here just after the Greyhounds had been established. It was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, now we've moved on to the next stage of saying, right, we've still got the Greyhounds, and that was one of the great things that happened, was being able to retain the Greyhounds on site. Now looking at a commercial development on the front portion of the land. So that to me is really a great step forward, and gosh, who knows where the next step will be in another 30 or 40 years' time.
To see it go from just a little country bumpkin show to what it is these days, it's magnificent, you know, to see from the racetrack out here and the old bar that used to be down over the side, all the old shops along the highway. It's just progressed so much, and what the Society has done with it, along with the Greyhounds, I think it's magnificent, wonderful.
I'm really excited about the redevelopment of the Canning Showgrounds. It's going to give us a lot of scope for the future. With the moving of the Greyhounds to the back of the property and Bunnings moving in, that'll give us income for the next 60 odd years or more.
This land will never be sold. It may be leased but never sold, and we've held on to that principle to the present time.
It's not my job to be excited about the redevelopment, it's my job to make it happen. Excitement doesn't come into the field of the words that I'm thinking about the redevelopment. There's just so much going on and it's all happening so quickly. So we've got the legal aspects, the physical aspects, we've got the tenants to deal with. Excited? Stop where I am. I'll be excited when we eventually finish it.
Absolutely, it's something we've been waiting on a long time. We have this little corner that we've been stuck in for so many years, so for us now to have a larger area and be able to build the facilities and have our own land that we own and do what we want with it is great. We'll be able to set up for the future. We'll know exactly what we got, where we can build bits and pieces and how we can in the future improve the show.
Yes, I am very excited. The fact that I've worked in the building trade, I realise is creating a lot of scope for more activities on this site and create an atmosphere for the community and involve more of the community.
My vision for the future of the society is that we do become the hub for the culture south of the river. North of the river has a lot of things, but south of the river we need something, and we have the opportunity to give people south of the river especially somewhere to come to, a focus point.
It's to draw more people in, it's to encourage the youth to become involved.
I'd like to see it make sure that it retains its community involvement, its grassroots input, that it doesn't just become an organisation that seems to exist for the sake of existing, but that it really is making an impact on the local community, on the lives of the people who come along and enjoy the facilities. Be they members of the society who take part in the show and the various subgroups like the men's shed and the gardens group, but also the people who make use of the amenity that the society offers. They come and hold their birthday party here, their wedding reception here, the community clubs that use the venue for exhibitions and displays ranging from guinea pigs through to military guys with their tanks. It has that capacity to offer a broad range of opportunities to people, and that to me is really exciting.
All it can do is grow more. It's come from, as I said, a little country show to one of the major shows, I think, around in the metropolitan area.
People can come here as a meeting place, whether it's for their community groups or for the Air Training Corps or any other sort of clubs and organisations, that we will have facilities here for which they can use, and we can make their home our home, and vice versa, so that into the future we will be the hub of community activities.
The future of the society has a few different aspects. One is the physical place. We have the showgrounds and the Cannington Exhibition Centre. That is a community hub which needs to be developed and we need to maximise that asset. The other side is that we need to grow the show into an outstanding regional event. It always has been a good event, but the population growth around this area needs to have one item or one calendar event that is above and beyond everything else that goes on. And that will come because it's consistent and because it's open to everybody. It will eventually become that.
One of the things we want to try and do is set it up for the future, so ensure the long term like previous committees have done. And I think with what we've got going on at the moment with our leases and that's going to ensure the long term of future of the society. And we have plans for future development for our own buildings, other halls, club meeting rooms, those sorts of things, and have more community involvement.
Well, what we have to realise is that the Canning Agricultural Society is no longer an agricultural show. Those days have gone. We are now in the midst of an urban area with a major regional shopping centre right next door. The show has to change to the extent that it's competing against entertainment and what have you, and it has to be such that it's got to rely on its members to bring forward the displays, etc., etc.
I would like to stay for as long as I stay healthy, as one would say. I admit to being mature aged. I am retired, so I have the time, but I'm involved in other aspects in the community, and I sort of put a bit of time in at each where I can. And if I can maintain my health so that I can carry on with it, I'll stay.
Oh, I hope to stay here as long as I'm active and able to do all the jobs and the chores and be a participant in the committee.
Depends how long they'll have me.
As I get to retiring age, then I hope that I can actually give some more time. I took long service leave last year so that I could spend the week before the show being more involved.
That depends on what the insurance companies say, because I think they're saying that our lifespan is now in its 70s or something. My man's beating that, he's in his 80s. So if I can make it to his age until I'm in my 80s, I don't have a reason not to be involved. It gives me something. I get more out of this than I feel that I put into it.
I think this year's my 40th show or something like that. So I'd like to keep on going, but only as long as I can provide an input. Once I get to the stage where I'm just coming along because I've always been there, that's the time to step aside. I've seen that happen with people and societies and organisations where, oh well, you know, so-and-so's been here since the year dot and dear old so-and-so doesn't really have much input. Well, that's the time to recognise it and step aside and say, hey guys, I've had a lot of fun, I've had a lot of input, but now it's on to move on. And I hope I'll recognise that time when it comes and stand aside and so, but I'd see myself being active for quite a few more years yet.
Well, that's a bit of a tough question, but I enjoy being here. I come in and do my show. We bring our caravan down and we camp on the grounds, myself and my partner Geoff, and I'd like to see it continue, but as I said, sometimes it's good to have the younger people come in. That's why I went from the committee, to have younger people come in. And then I think for the show, I mean, I'm getting on in my years as well, and I think it's time for the young ones to come in. So as long as they'll have me, I'll stay here, and I just enjoy it. It's like part of my family.
I've been involved with them for over 20 years now, and if Ray Humphrey's anything to go by, I've probably got another 30 in me. So, and I can't see a reason why I would not be involved with CAHRS, in as much as it's something which I enjoy doing, and I get a lot of pleasure out of helping out with the show. So until someone throws me out, I suppose I'm going to be around here.
Well, I guess depend on the committee. I've been here 3.5 years, and yeah, my contract's got a while longer to run. So I don't know. Maybe that's a question for the president.
I love this place. I think this place has done so much for not only myself, but for other people, and I love being part of that. I love helping other people. I love seeing people realise and feel achievement, and it's great. And if I can keep being part of this, I'd love to.
I really enjoy what I do here. I enjoy my involvement with the society, and as long as that stays there and the society want me, I'll be here.
What I think is best about the society is how it gets the whole community involved with the running of the show, and also in other projects which are done throughout the year.
The friendships that you gather, the like-minded people, the varying expertise in different abilities of needleworks and crafts and cooking, the things that you learn from other people.
The volunteers make the society. Without them it wouldn't exist. And when you think about what it came from, the people that started it back in the days when this was all cow paddocks and farmers and Mason's Landing, they were people who were in the community, and they put on something for the community. What keeps us going as the volunteers? People who do something just for the sake of doing it for other people.
One of my goals is to leave the legacy of the society for the children and the grandchildren. It's a wonderful asset, privately owned as an organisation, and it has a very bright future.
I think one of the strong points about it is it's a viable voluntary society at a local level. We're one of the few agricultural societies that has its own premises, and the reason we've got them is through the hard work of those volunteers, the guys who planned it all right back from when the society was first formed.
How it's come from what I knew, just down in that little office down the end there with the white ant floor, and the new buildings that have come up, gone through, the different people. I was the only one in the office to start with that did the whole lot of the show, but now we've got Diane and Ryan and you know, 3 other people down in the office, which has made it a lot, well, it's progressed just so much.
The best thing about the society is that there's something for everyone. It's what you want to make it, that's what you can do. So we've got drama groups and gardening groups and various different things going on all the time. I always say my job is to make sure that there's something in the show for everyone, and if there's not something for everyone, then I'm not doing my job properly.
There is so much movement for creativity. There is so much room for ideas and concepts and trial and error, and what this place gives both myself and Diana's staff, but also members of the society and the local community, outside organisations and industries, is the opportunity to bring things to the centre, to trial them, to give different individuals or organisations platforms to take things off, to trial a new series of activities that may not have taken place anywhere else.
So we provide a service to the community, we provide a place for them to come together, and we can all get together no matter what culture and nationality you've got.
For me, it's the volunteers. It doesn't matter if they're a one-off, one-year volunteer or if it's someone who's been coming for many, many years to help out. It's the fact that they actually recognise that there's a need for help to run the canning show, and they step up and they make that choice and come and help us. So I think that there's a lot of under recognition goes on for the volunteer who just takes the courage to come here for the first time.
We're all volunteers, and the society has been built on people being volunteers and just working together, all for a common purpose of putting on a jolly good show and making sure the society survives into the future, that we're on a firm base. I think we're getting there.
The canning show is the community.